as a 13-year-old, I don't think this is the thing that you want to be chanting at your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. And yet it's a very, significant piece of Torah. And I'm also going to share Rabbi Nickerson. I don't know if you read his, he just dropped his Shabbat message and talks about a very beautiful way to interpret this these portions. There's two of them put together. They're called Tazria and Metzora. It's really like disease and breakouts and leprosy. It's all about how you deal with it, which probably was a common thing in the ancient world, diseases and skin diseases and bodily fluids and all that stuff. And so it's dealt with. And there's also, according to the rabbis, a very interesting spiritual component to this disease that I want to share with you as well. So, all right, let's just, oh, David Trainer. Wow. Welcome. And Helen. Hi, Helen. I know you're on the phone. Nice to hear you. And Ellen and Julian, if you'll show yourselves, it will be great. So I can see you. Hi, David. Nice to see you all. So, okay. So as I was just saying to the people who came in late, this is like the most kind of the worst portion you would ever want. I guess I will wait a few minutes because we're getting a lot more people. So I won't repeat myself. Wow. This is a big, nice to have all these people. Hi, Brad. Hi, Helen. Nice to see you all. Okay.
Here I am.
Good.
How
Hi.
do you
Oh, I
do?
can actually see you. Nice to see
Yes,
you.
I pushed the right button.
Okay. Welcome, welcome. Nice to
Thank
have
you.
you.
Nice to see you too.
You too. And wait, I saw Panina, didn't say hi to Panina and Jan. So, okay. So as I was saying, I'll just repeat this one part. This is probably the worst Torah portion that a bar mitzvah kid or bat mitzvah would want to have. It's called Tazria-Metzora, and it's about leprosy. It's about childbirth. It's about bodily fluids. It's about mold. It's about cleanliness and uncleanliness. But the words in Hebrew are not, they're untranslatable. The word for considering uncleanliness is called tameh, and it really means um, ritually or spiritually impure, not physically impure. And tahor means very pure. We talk about the shemen tahor, the pure oil that's put into the menorah in the temple. So there is this idea of purity, sullied, but the word tameh is not dirty or impure as separate and a time when you cannot participate in the purity rituals of purification. So it's a time when you're not allowed to, and we can talk about the reasons why or what we think, there's I just read an interesting rabbinical explanation and if we like it or not. But I think we should first look at a little bit of text first. So now, as I said, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to share this. Or Hannah, are you ready to help me? Hi, Helen. Nice to see you. Okay,
Did
share.
you get your new computer?
Not yet. And there, it's not there. Oh my God. Okay, so Hannah, what do I do?
Okay, so you have to have the document open in the background.
So how do I do that? What do I do with this? I put this
You
small.
can't.
I
Well,
put
you
this
don't have to
small.
minimize it or
I
anything.
have it right here. Here's the document.
And then go back to Zoom.
How? How do I go back to Zoom? That doesn't show anywhere. Now the whole screen is just the document.
Can you make the dashboard at the bottom appear?
No. Now I just ruined it. Oh, I can't wait to get
No,
out.
if you run your mouse down towards the bottom of the screen, the dashboard, the little strip of apps should come up.
Yeah.
It's not.
Or make the document you're trying to share a little smaller so it's not your full
Yeah,
screen.
instead of minimizing it, just like make it, bring the corner down so you can make
I mean, the
the
dashboard, oh my God, this is like okay, hold on. No, no. I'm, oh, here it is. Okay, Zoom, found it. It finally came up. Okay, so now it should be,
if you
I
hit the share button, it'll then allow you to choose what screen you want to share, what window you want to share, and the Word document is the one you would
here
choose.
it is, but it got smaller because I did something wrong.
Here we are.
Make it bigger now.
Okay, hold on, but I don't know why. All right, whatever. I will make it bigger. Okay, I'll start with making it bigger. Can you all read that, or should I make it even bigger? Okay. So here's the beginning of it. So, oh my God, nice to, let me see if I can see you all. All right, it's the best I can do. All right, so it starts with childbirth. So, who would like to read? And how this is going to go down like this? How am I going to? How do I now? Oh my God, I can't wait to get rid of this. I can't find the way to scroll down. How do I scroll down as I want to?
On the side, you have this.
Right-hand side, that little bar on the right-hand side of the
Yeah,
Word document. You use that to scroll up and down.
yeah, but it's not doing it.
No, like if you hold down on that little gray bar that's right underneath where it says request signatures, there's a little gray ovally rectangle inside, like where you would slide up and down.
I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean?
Okay, if you slide your cursor over to the right where you would normally slide the document up and down,
You're right, but it's
there's
not.
that bar. Yes, you're in that bar, but you see that little gray at the top?
Move up that column.
Arrow straight up, just straight up. You see that little gray thing that you just skipped over? No, go back down right there.
There's nothing there. There's no gray thing.
Within that thing, if you move your arrow up like 1 inch, there is a
It looks like a
little
button.
gray dot in there.
There isn't though. I'm telling you, there's nothing there.
Am I the
Okay,
only one?
there it is. There it is. I moved it. Okay, I got it.
That you can move
All
up.
right, got it. Okay, let's just go. Thank you. All right. Who would like to start?
I'll read if you want.
Thank you,
Susan.
Jan. Go ahead.
Okay. 1, God spoke to Moses saying, 2, speak to the Israelites saying, if a woman conceives and gives birth to a male child, she becomes ritually defiled for 7 days. She becomes ritually defiled to the same degree as she does during the days of her menstrual flow. On the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin must be circumcised. For 33 days, she will remain in a transitional state during which her uterine blood is not a source of ritual defilement. She may not touch any consecrated food, nor may she enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification have been completed.
Okay, let's just stop here. So if a woman gives birth to a boy, she's considered ritually defiled. The word in Hebrew is tameh, meaning not able to deal with purity, pure things for 7 days. And it's the same as with her menstrual flow, because when a woman has her period, she's also considered actually unclean during that time and for 7 days afterwards. And on the 8th day, as we know, is the bris. And then it says for 33 days, she will remain in a transitional state where her uterine blood is not a source of ritual defilement, but she can't touch anything or enter into the sanctuary. So does that seem like strange to you? I mean, she's not considered unclean, but she still can't touch anything holy. Any idea? So that's kind of confusing to me. Any thoughts on, is it like a limited uncleanliness? Or is it her blood it's not the same as she can't touch anything at all. She just can't touch holy things. Actually, I can't even ask you this because you're not going to know the answer. So let's just read about the female, and then we'll come back and talk about all of it. So, does somebody have a thought? Oh, Panina.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that in order to enforce something, they used Moses, I guess, or used this impression that there is an influence of a higher power to kind of like sell the idea to whoever it is that's supposed to follow it, to the women or to the men. So I don't think that, I think they couldn't explain it scientifically. So in order to enforce the idea and to make the people or suggest to the people to do it, was to give it the robe of an instruction from God.
Yeah, well, everything, yes, but I want to talk about why touching blood is considered impure, and it's not. There's this idea that anything that is part of the life force or part of that comes from the body and has some kind of connection to life or death puts you in a separate category. So you're not going to enter the sanctuary, but you're going to be in your own state of a certain kind of spiritual power that you cannot go into the sanctuary, but you're experiencing a different kind of connection with the life and death force, because it's a similar thing about touching a dead body or anything that is part of the life force or death. You're separated during that experience as some rabbis say, for your own individual spiritual experience. But let's just read this second part about a woman, which is very interesting. So, Helen, do you want to read? If she gives birth to a female child.
If she gives birth to a female child, she becomes ritually defiled.
That's the same as a boy, yeah.
To the same degree as she does during her menstruation period, and remains so for 2 weeks.
Okay, so for the boy, it's only 1 week. For the girl, it's 2 weeks. Continue.
She will remain in a transitional state during which her uterine blood is not a source of ritual defilement for 66 days.
Okay, so why do you think it's double for a girl child, for a girl infant, a baby girl, and then a baby boy? What would be your thinking? And the rabbi,
patriarchal reasons.
Patriarchal, that she's more unclean with a girl?
Yeah.
John?
I'm just raising my head as I don't know what else it could be. I mean, it's not gonna. Judaism would not be an outlier in organized religion if it deprioritized women. And I think that's what's going on here. Though I would welcome any contradiction.
Okay. Any other thoughts before I tell you what I read?
I was just thinking that with a boy, there's a bris on the 8th day, and with the girl, until recently, there wasn't even a baby naming.
Correct. So one suggestion is they make her, not impure, not tameh, after a week, so that she can attend the bris, that she can be part of the ritual. That was one thing. And then I read another commentary that said that this power that I'm talking about, this connection to the life force in a girl child, is stronger because a girl is going to actually create life in her own body. So the fact that this is the idea that she has more life force in her because she is the source of life herself. So you need more time to recover or for the power to abate in the girl child. Do you accept that? Does that answer anything for you? What do you think?
Helen does not.
No, I think it's justification. That theory is justification for these rules.
Justification for these rules. So you just think a girl, or perhaps because a girl is a source of menstrual blood herself, she will be that she has this needs a longer separation or a longer return to the state of purity. So this is from the Eitz Chaim that they talk about this, that this idea that it's to also, I mean, maybe a woman would honor, welcome a longer break and being separated from a lot of obligations. Because as it is, a woman is not required, according to the Talmud, to do any mitzvah that is time bound, except for lighting candles and Shabbat. But anything like, praying or sacrifices or anything, because she's not required, they say, because she's taking care of her children, which is the priority. And also the Hasidim will say she's in a higher holy state and doesn't need all these rules. Pnina.
I think there are some cultures that actually perform some kind of it's not circumcision like a boy, but they do something also to the girls.
Yeah, but not at this age, but it's terrible.
No,
The
right.
female
But
clitorectomy.
this whole idea to do something also that has to do with females, I don't know, maybe it has some kind of connection to that ritual that's being done to them at, I don't know, the age of what, 12, I think? No.
Yeah, but it's actually the reverse, because
Oh, okay.
the Brit literally means the covenant. And actually, the commentaries say the reason it's done at 8 days and not when you're 12 is it's not about preparing you for sexuality.
Right.
It's not about preparing you to enter a stage of fertility or sexuality. On a woman, it's actually to prevent her
Right.
from being promiscuous or to having any sexual enjoyment, which is
Right.
completely antithetical to Jewish teaching. Okay, so here's a very interesting thing that they say. After she's done with her purification, whether it's 33 days or 66 days, she has to go and make some sacrifices. So, and I want to talk about what these sacrifices could mean. So who would like to read 6 and 7? Somebody, come on.
I will.
Oh, who said? Okay, go ahead, Merle.
Merle. When the period of her purification has been completed, whether for a son or for a daughter, she must bring the priest a sheep in its first year as an ascent offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering into the courtyard outside the entrance to the tent of meeting. Yuck. The priest must offer it up before God and effect atonement for her. She will be purified from the source of her blood. This is the law that applies to a woman who gives birth, whether to a male or a female.
Last one.
If she cannot afford a sheep, she may take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one as an ascent offering and one as a sin offering. The priest must effect atonement for her, and she will be rid of defilement.
Okay, defilement, I don't know. It's like she now she can participate in any kind of purification rituals after this time. But okay, there's 2 sacrifices or offerings, as we say, a scent offering and an atonement offering. So an ascent offering is giving something up to God in gratitude, or also elevating yourself. We can understand she's elevated, she's a mother, she's giving gratitude, but why an atonement offering? What does she have to atone for? Any thoughts about that? Any idea? What would David?
Is she atoning for the defilement that was previously described?
Well, I mean, that's a possibility, but what the Rashi and the commentators say is, I love this, that while she was giving birth, she may have made an oath that she will never have sex or have another child again because it's so painful. And so this is an atonement to say, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that oath. I'm negating that oath. That's what they say it is, because she probably said, this is it. I'm never doing this again. In case she made any kind of negative promises during this time, she does this atonement offering and saying, I didn't mean it, because oaths and vows in Judaism are extremely serious. There's the famous story in the book of Judges of Jephthah's daughter. Does anybody know that story of Jephthah's daughter?
Yeah.
About besides Penina, does anybody else know this?
Okay.
Brad, you don't know it? You usually know things. Jephthah was a kind of a outlier guy, but he was a very strong fighter and a leader. And there was a war with the Canaanites, and so this is before there were kings. These judges would arise in time of need, and they came to him and said, "We want you to lead us into war, and help us defeat the army." And he went to the sanctuary and he made a sacrifice, and he said, "If I win in war, on my way home, the first thing that I see, I will sacrifice to God," thinking it would be an animal. And as he succeeded, and he came back, and who was the first thing that came toward him was his daughter. This is in the Tanakh, in the Bible, his daughter, and he had to keep his sacrifice. Can you believe this story? And so his daughter said, "Give me 1 year before you do it." And the story is how she spent it with her girlfriends and living her life. And then she honored her father's oath and he sacrificed her. And I think it's a horrible story, but it's in there to show you, I don't know if it really happened, but to show you that the power of oaths, you cannot take. That's why Kol Nidre is such a big deal on Yom Kippur, where you say, all the oaths that I make in the coming year, you think it's the past year, it's if I make anything and in a rash moment, I'm telling you now, I'm taking it back, because this is what happened. And I don't know if it was based on that, but that's the reason of Kol Nidre means all my vows, all the vows that I make. So it's past, or if anything I didn't keep, it's null and void. Okay, so that's like the very beginning of this. It starts with birth. Birth is already something that needs to have a purification ritual around it. And then the next thing that comes is disease.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
What wouldn't you have expected, or at least I would have expected, maybe some mention of the mikvah at this point?
Not here, but now with leprosy, yes. There wasn't, the mikvah was for menstrual, but not, I guess, for childbirth. You're right. I would expect it.
Isn't that she will be purified a part of it?
Yeah, maybe, but they don't say she should go to the ritual bath or whatever. So you're right. I'm looking, when it says purified, because I have the Torah here, it doesn't mention. But if it's being likened to the menstrual purification, I agree with you, would have to be going to the mikveh, but though they don't specifically say it, because that's how women, and they separated themselves for
Or
7
maybe being in the desert is the idea of water is not even existing.
Yeah, but I don't know how what's the ritual of purification? You're right, but it's not mentioned specifically. You're right. I would expect that. That's a good point. Okay. So now it's about, and I mean, it gives you, and this is Rabbi Nickerson's comments, and so I wanted to do both at the same time, because it's connecting to this. All right, so first, now, this is about disease. And God spoke, hold on, I want to just see something. So God spoke to Moses about the childbirth thing, but he speaks to Moses and Aaron about this leprosy thing, because the high priest has a very, very important job and position during this. He is the one who declares you pure or tameh, pure, or tahor, tameh, impure, tahor, pure. So, okay, David, I saw you. Are you still here? Okay. Dulani, do you want to read? but you're muted. You're muted. Okay. Still muted. You're muted. Okay.
Unmute.
Now,
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
Okay. Starting on 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so God spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, if person develops a wool white spot, an egg membrane white spot, or a snow white spot on the skin of his flesh, and he forms a Tazria-at lesion on the skin of his flesh, he must be brought to Aaron, the priest, or to the one of his sons, the priests. The priest must examine the lesion of the skin of the flesh, and if the dark hairs within the lesion have turned white, and the appearance of the lesion is deeper than that of the skin of his flesh, it is a Tazria lesion. When the priest sees this, he must pronounce him ritually defiled.
Okay. So why do you think the priest would be the one, not a healer, not a kind of a doctor or someone who's a specialist, but why would the priest be the person to examine this, do you think?
Because in this case, he would be, well, we're talking about leprosy.
Yeah.
Right. So
or something. They don't know if it's
or something. Well,
yeah,
in this
some
case, they
terrible
don't know.
skin disease.
Yeah. But in this case, they want to avoid other people to be in contact with that. So I'm assuming.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah,
All right.
like spreading.
Okay. Oh, for contagious reasons.
For contagious reason. Yeah, I mean that's my first thought.
Okay. Okay. Helen?
I think there's a connection between impurity here too.
Continue.
In other words, the concept of tameh applies.
No, but wouldn't you think the priest would be the last person to be near someone who?
Not if it's a religious basis of acceptability. It's a religious thing. It's not a medical thing. It's not a social thing. It's religious. Or
Okay.
at least that's how I think it's viewed here.
And also, wouldn't the priest be a pure symbol? And then maybe because the fact that he is pure, he would not be, I don't know, afflicted by whatever's happening to the other person.
I'm sure he took precautions. Panina?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think it has something to do with what happened to Aaron's sons. They said that Esh Zara, all of a sudden a strange fire, or fire that they couldn't explain how. And I have a feeling that they went to Saudi Arabia, and that's the way that today people are saying that the route that they took, otherwise they wouldn't have hit the Red Sea. That they might have literally maybe be contact with some oil, that they thought that there some kind of oil that's God gave them to use, and they actually caught fire. So I think being exposed to this particular something that was flammable maybe would leave, like if you touch those minerals, those oil, whatever, it will leave you with a brown, kind of like a stain.
But why the priest? Why is the
because
priest?
Aaron's sons died of this.
Oh.
He was the priest kids, and they
Yeah.
died, and it's called it Esh Zara.
I know, but
fire that they
yeah.
what could have caught fire that much that they would die? So now if they see that those spots, they were afraid that maybe those people who were exposed to the same whatever Esh Zara that caught the children, Aaron's sons. So it came from the priesthood, the whole idea, because they're the ones who actually experienced something phenomenal that caused them to die.
All right.
Caught fire and died.
I think that's stretching it, but I think it's interesting. Brad?
Well, in African cultures, the medicine man, or he had other names, was a healer as well as a spiritual guide. He was both. And he kind of acted as a mediator between the physical and the spiritual realm. So I wonder if this isn't some kind of this was just a practice within the area, within the neighborhood, so to speak.
Okay, so he was the priest and he was like the holy man or the healer. He was he was all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a possibility. One of the commentaries said that the priests hated, they wanted to keep everyone as part of the community, and it would be very reluctant to banish someone out of the community unless it was absolutely necessary. They would have no agenda toward these people, and so they would be much more likely to be objective about what it is as opposed to someone else. There's a suggestion that would have an agenda. So Aaron particularly was incredibly beloved and kind, and he kept checking on these people. They came back and came back and came back to see, is it really such a case? It's as we'll see here. So who was reading? Or Cindy, why don't you read? 4.
If the lesion on the skin of his flesh is a snow white spot whose appearance is not deeper than that of the skin, but no dark hairs have turned white, the priest must quarantine the person with the lesion for 7 days. On the 7th day, the priest must examine him. If the lesion has remained the same in its appearance and the lesion has not spread on the skin, the priest must quarantine him for 7 days a second time.
And basically, the whole portion is about then they check this thing, and if it's this color and that color and whatever, and they're constantly checking. And if they say you have it, you are put outside of the community, but you're still checked on, you're still taken care of until it comes to the moment when it's cured, and then you have a ritual to return to the community, which we're going to look at in a minute. But I think I wanted to share what Rabbi Nickerson just wrote today. I just read it and I thought it was, I mean, I didn't want to go into every single detail of the text. If you look at it, it talks about how you have to keep checking and doing this and that and whatever. And finally you decide. But Rabbi Nickerson sort of summarized it in a very spiritual way. So, John, do you want to read this?
Normally I would say yes. I just put some.
Okay, just put
took a bite
something
of
in
a
your mouth.
sandwich.
Okay, Brad, how about you?
Our Torah portion, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Our Torah portion this week,
Tazria-Metzora.
Tazria-Metzora, speaks directly to how we treat those who find themselves separated from the community. The portion details circumstances in which individuals with certain conditions must temporarily separate themselves from the greater Israelite camp. Yet importantly, wait a second.
Right here.
The Kohen priest is instructed to go outside the camp to examine those who have been set apart, to monitor their healing, and ultimately to facilitate their return and reintegration into the Israelite community. They are not to remain outside the camp permanently. The Torah teaches us that even when separation occurs, it must be accompanied by ongoing care, attention to healing, and a commitment to eventual restoration. And it's very poignant that you chose me to read that because that's what I've just been through.
With your cancer.
Exactly.
Yes, and so you know that even when you were getting your chemo and everything, people were in touch with you, people were connecting with you and welcoming you back. And that is a very Jewish thing that we do to people, even when they're an outcast or they have to be separated for whatever is going on with them. We don't just forget them or say, oh, I can't be around them or whatever. It's our obligation. And this really, Rabbi Nickerson, if you read the whole piece, he's talking about immigration actually, and immigrants who have been how to handle what's going on with immigrants who are being grabbed up and deported, and how they're trying to make them separate in our community, and how we can't allow that to happen. John.
Well, I think it's also interesting that the emphasis, to sort of answer your earlier question, the emphasis on having a priest come and visit them, and it ties into what Brad was saying earlier about the African connections between healers, spiritual leaders, and healers, certainly medicine men, etc. But there's also something lovely of the idea of, like, when these people are ill and when they are outcast and when they have to be separated, it's important they have a connection to God.
A connection to God and the community.
And
Yes,
the community.
you're right.
By one selfless person whose job it is to go out and do these things at their own possible risk.
Yes. And one second, Penina, and I'll call on you. There's this beautiful book by the Chafetz Chaim, who was a rabbi in the 19th century, called Ahavat Hesed, which means loving goodness and compassion. And he talks about when someone is sick, there's an obligation to visit people who are ill, but the higher you are in the community, like the leaders, they're the ones that are obligated more than others to go and visit the sick. And the Kabbalah says that when you visit the sick, you remove 1/60th of their pain and suffering. But this rabbi says you can actually save people's lives, because you have such despair when you're separate and you're ill and feeling alone. And the visit, and in contemporary life, the call, even the text can make such a difference to a person who is separated because of illness, this being a skin disease. And so you're right. And it is a holy thing to do, but now we don't just depend on the priest to do it. We're all obligated to do it. Cindy?
Yeah, I was just thinking how different COVID would have been if we didn't have Zoom, because we all stayed connected. Even the kids with their schoolwork were able to maintain their schoolwork. And we really didn't use Zoom before COVID, but we kept our classes, we kept communication with people. And a lot of times, just instead of a phone call, I'd get on Zoom with someone just so we could see each other.
Exactly. And a lot of us had seders on Zoom during that time, and there were B'nai Mitzvah on Zoom.
And funerals.
And funerals on Zoom, exactly. So that even reinforces this idea of the connection, particularly when a person is in distress in some way. Penina.
I'm going back to the word Tazria-Metzora. Tazria comes from the word Zera. Zera is a seed, or today we would call it the human, wherever it is that a man.
Semen, the semen.
Right, the semen. But
The
I'm
sperm.
going back to the word itself, the word seed that are being used there. It has to do definitely that they connected to something that came out from the ground. Why would they call it that?
Or the body.
Yeah, why would they call it for the body? So again, I'm going back, why the priest? Because the priest at that time was Aaron. Aaron lost two sons to something that they cannot explain. They had all of a sudden a fire that bad that caught up, they got caught up in it and died. So I'm going back with all the beautiful habits and ceremonies that we learn to do, or how to treat each other from everything that's happening there. This is amazing. Yes, that's because we are looking at it from the point of our good hearts and our progressive acknowledgement that we got, that all this advanced studying and learning that we got. But still, I'm going to the word that's being used this few thousand years ago. Why would they use the word zera, which means a seed, to even describe the source? How would you
Because, okay, this is getting on a tangent, but because things
what I'm trying to
from
tell
a
you is,
seed.
again, I'm thinking, let me finish. And with this, I'm going to not repeat it again. Why the priest? Because he actually saw his sons burn from something that they couldn't explain, that came from the ground. That was it.
Okay, thank you. I know you said, thank you.
You're
Okay, so now I want to look at, here's something interesting, because we're going to find out that the rabbis and perhaps the priests, but for sure the rabbis connected this skin disease with gossip.
Oh, okay.
Gossip with bad behavior. And there's an interpretation from Rashi how they get that idea that it's from gossip based on the different ways that you sacrifice to atone at the end of it. But they saw the leprosy or the skin disease as a manifestation of a spiritual or spiritual disease, a character flaw that you had to atone as well. There was something within you, not just without you, that was manifesting in your body. So I found that really interesting. And Rashi explains exactly why they think that. So first, we have to look at the atonement of what you do once you're cured, just like the woman has to go and give a atonement sacrifice and an olah, a gratitude sacrifice. Now this person comes and gives a sacrifice as well. And it's considered a way of spiritually returning to the camp. But the specific pieces of the sacrifice all have symbolic meaning. So, John, now do you want to read?
Sure, here we go. God spoke to Moses, saying, "The following is the law regarding the person afflicted with zarat."
Zarat is leprosy, but they
Right.
can't say it's exactly leprosy. It's a skin
It's
disease.
a skin disease, a
Yeah.
boils kind of thing, right? Yeah. His purification must take place during the day. He must be brought to the priest. The priest must go outside the camp. The priest must examine him, and if the zarat lesion has healed on the afflicted person, the priest must order someone to take for the person who is to be purified 2 live birds of a species that does not render one spiritually defiled.
Yes, like a kosher bird. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Plus a cedar stick, a strip of scarlet wool, and some hyssop, all of which you have in your junk drawer.
Yes.
The priest must order someone to slaughter 1 bird such that its blood drip onto spring water in an earthenware vessel. As for the live bird, the priest must take it along with the cedar stick, the strip of scarlet wool, and the hyssop, and dip them along with the live bird into the blood of the slaughtered bird that previously dripped onto the spring water. He must then dash some of the blood and water 7 times upon the person being purified from Sararet, and he will thereby purify him. The priest must then send away the live bird into the open field.
Okay, so this guy has to come in, or woman, and have this very complicated, esoteric ritual. What does it mean? I mean, it seems pagan in a way. And then here, just 2 more.
The person being purified must then immerse his garments in the water of a mikveh,
So Brad, here's the mikvah finally. Go ahead.
shave off all his hair, and immerse himself in the water of a mikveh, and he will thus be purified. After this, he may enter the camp, but he must remain outside his tent for 7 days. On the 7th day, he must shave off all his hair, his head, his beard, and his eyebrows, and he must shave off all his hair. It's a weird little quirk of translation here. I
Maybe
bet
they mean his body hair too. I don't
they
know.
might, yeah. He must then immerse his garments and immerse his flesh in the water of a mikveh, and thus be purified.
So it's a pretty complicated purification ritual. We can see him shaving off all his hair and all of that. You know, when you go into the mikveh, well, you don't shave your hair, but you have to, you can't wear anything on your nails. You have to cut your nails. You have to be completely able to be immersed in water. It's interesting, though, that they also have to dip this bird in blood and then send it off. So now does anybody have any thoughts on the meaning of any of this? Any thoughts at all about what it could mean? It's there's a lot of these very esoteric rituals. And if you're looking at it from the pagan point of view, is this something they saw in other cultures? There was certainly the reading of entrails in the ancient Greek culture, where you opened up an animal and you could prophesy the future from their organs or whatever. So, John.
Well, traditionally, cedar being a very sturdy wood, we make furniture out of it. It sort of symbolizes strength and, fortifying one, endurance. Um, you've lost me on the hyssop.
Right. We're going to, yeah.
I looked up hyssop, and it's a plant like from the mint family.
From the mint family.
So
Okay.
I'm thinking that when you heat up hyssop in some way, maybe it has a pleasant odor. I don't know.
That's a possibility. I also like the dead bird and the live bird, and what does this have to do with it all? And the blood, for sure. The blood is, the life force, returning the life force. Okay, so here is a very interesting. Okay, I want to try to make it a little more readable. Rashi is highly helpful when trying to tackle the question of why certain ingredients would have been included in the purification of a leper. A close look at the ingredients named in verse 4 will show how the text views the nature of leprosy. In the case of the disease, there is a direct correlation between certain behaviors before the onset of leprosy and the remedies to cleanse the individual afterwards. So Rashi, who lived in 1100s BCE in France, actually, he interpreted everything. He wrote commentaries about everything. He looked into this, and this was Rashi's understanding. So, who hasn't read? Douglas, do you want to read? Here.
Okay. First, we will address the matter of two live clean birds. Rashi says, since affliction come from because of malicious talk, which is an act of verbal twittering, therefore, the one said that wrong, twittering, I don't know. Therefore, there was required for the sufferer's purification. Birds that constantly twitter with chirping of sound. Rashi here evokes the crime. Where did we go? Crime of
Lashon hara, or malicious speech.
And malicious speech.
According to the Jerusalem Talmud, the crime of Lashon hara is equivalent of idolatry, licentiousness, and murder combined.
Uh-oh.
So and this is like in the Talmud too, that they think that this leprosy was caused by gossip, and gossip is one of the worst things you can do. And the reason is, does anybody know about the story of Miriam? This is in the Torah, Miriam was gossiping to Aaron about Moses's wife. And though there's lots of different explanations of what she was really saying, but it says she says to Aaron, Moses's wife is a Cushi, which is a black woman, a Sudanese or an Ethiopian. We don't know, a black skinned woman. That's all she says. And suddenly her skin breaks out in this leprosy because of it. And then she has to be separated from the camp, just like, is explained here. And she's all covered in the white scales. And Moses begs God to heal her. This is our oldest Misha Berach. She says, El na rafan Allah. God, please heal her, heal her. And the commentary says she wasn't really gossiping. She was talking about Moses's neglect of his wife, who was a beautiful woman. But the idea is she shouldn't have been talking about anything to Aaron. She should have been talking about it to Moses. But there's this idea that now connects gossip, lashon hara, evil tongue, to skin disease or an outbreak of skin disease. So that's why they say that has to be a purification spiritually or religiously, as well as physically. So here's the next part of it. Let's see, Margot, do you want to read? Soiling someone's reputation.
Sure. Soiling someone else's reputation by spreading such speech is a high crime. The punishment of leprosy fits this crime by spreading sores over the body of the gossiper. Just as gossip infects and taints the lives of its subjects, so does leprosy infect the taint, the gossiper. Thus, the purification rite must include twittering birds to symbolize the leper's missteps. Next, the matter.
Okay, one more. Go ahead.
Next, the matter of the cedar wood. Rashi explains this ingredient by saying, because afflictions come because of haughtiness and such, including such a high, lovely tree in the mixture, will remind the leper that he thought highly of himself before he was punished with his disease.
So this leper or this person with the skin disease has a lot of character flaws, and he brought it upon himself. Now, I don't know that we would believe that today, but we do know that you can bring about illness psychologically or mentally, from your behaviors or your thinking or whatever. But Rashi is saying this is why these particular elements were put in the purification ritual, and that this is what they expected the leper to be thinking about in his separation. Perhaps the priest was talking to him about it, but you were gossiping and you were haughty, is what they're saying. Okay. Who hasn't read in a while? Dulani, why don't you come back to you in this context?
In this context, cedars become associated with arrogance. This goes against the grain of the typically positive cedar image in Jewish tradition. Psalm 91:13, for example, declares, "The righteous bloom like the date palm, they thrive like a cedar in Lebanon." In the Song of Songs, the lover is described with the breathless words, "He is majestic as Lebanon, stately as cedars."
In Genesis
In-
Rabbah, which is like a midrash, this is exactly what John said. The cedars are the best sturdy trees that can be found. So ironically, Rashi plays on these valences not to show how an individual should not conduct himself. That the cedar is reminding you not to be haughty. Okay. And there's another idea. Let's see. Jan, beyond reminder, serving as a reminder, right here.
Beyond serving as a reminder of haughtiness, the cedar's presence could also be interpreted as showing the leper the heights he might aspire to regain once he is cleansed of his impurities.
So that's interesting. It's a double meaning. Either don't be too haughty, or you were too haughty, or okay, you've been brought low, but now you're going to be able to, attain heights in your new purified state. So that's what Rashi is saying the cedar's presence could be. Okay. And then Merle, this will give you this idea about the hyssop, the final two components. Jan, why don't you read?
The final two components, crimson stuff and hyssop, can be
That's wool, like wool. Go ahead.
Can be interpreted together as symbols of ultimate lowliness. Rashi says, "What is his remedy that he should be cured? He should lower himself from his arrogance like a worm and like hyssop." How does Rashi get from crimson stuff to a worm?
Okay, so this is like there's a two words. One, it dyed wool, and the word for worm in Hebrew are both tolat. So he's making a double entendre. And so the crimson piece of wool stands for the humble worm next to the noble cedar. So it's a low plant. So there's a symbol of height and being brought low, to remember that you're being brought low and that you were gossiping and twittering like a bird. So all of these things you're now being purified from. Okay, so the question is, do these things really purify you? Actually, it's just a lot of these rituals are to psychologically impress upon you what happened to you and help to bring you to the next place. So, by eliminating haughtiness, but by being sturdy and by not gossiping. Gossiping is the big sin of leprosy. And yes, Panina.
Okay, the gardeners are making a horrible noise, so I'm going to have to speak loud. So I think Rashi lived in a place where was he actually practicing his
France.
France, okay. Well, the Rambam before him was preaching
after him.
We're preaching around the same ideas, also about this whole idea of being humble. Well, he lived in Egypt, and according to their belief, the Jew couldn't stand any higher than the Arab person next to him. So this whole idea of humbling, which is okay to be humble anyhow, but here was very, very much a matter of survival. They had to be shown that they are humble. They couldn't stand up if there was a Muslim person next to them sitting. They had to be always below. And another thing is that I think what we call today allergies, today are getting, we're giving it more of a scientific medical term, while in those days they couldn't really explain all those allergies. But the fact that they were able to at least how do you say, get the main idea of being humble and to be considered of the other person was okay if it came to this conclusion, if they gave it this kind of a translation. I'm always looking at the facts, more like physical, what was going on that might have caused all those things. So again, I'm saying that they couldn't explain allergies. They couldn't, because it came and went. The spots were there, but then it went away. Some people died, yes, because it was, honest to goodness, bad situation, bad cause. But I'm talking about also the historical conditions that gave kind of like a concrete necessity to those behaviors.
Right. Okay. So there's two levels of the Torah, or there's many, many levels. But I think it's also interesting if you just take it in the ancient times, that it's very reassuring when these diseases or these terrible things happen, that there are rituals, there are people who come and tend to you, whether they necessarily cure you or not. It's not like you're terrified and no one knows what to do. There is this whole ceremony, because psychologically, there's a psychological component to healing that needs to be there as well. And that's in the Torah, in the actual text. There's these rituals that would say, this is how we're going to cleanse you, and you can come back to the community, because we can only imagine in those times when somebody did break out in these diseases, everybody would be going, oh my God, remember when AIDS first broke out and the terrible stigma around people with AIDS and all these things. So we know that this happens. And here's this ritual saying, don't worry, we're going to do this ritual. We're going to take care of you. We're going to check you. So that's not. And then what I love about Rabbinic Judaism, and this continues to happen, and Rabbi Nickerson did it today, we keep layering it with ethical and spiritual meaning through the centuries. We keep layering it. Now, this, if you read his thing, is about immigration. It's what's going on today. And that's like, we can constantly evoke more higher level behavior and ethics and values, even to this pretty graphic, unpleasant chapter on leprosy and skin disease. So I think that's one of the beauties of the Torah and Jewish learning. And it's 1 o'clock, so I want to thank you for sharing this hour with me. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very much.
Bye, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Shalom, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Tonight is
Bye.
Yom Ha'atzmaut at the temple if you want to come, celebrating Israel. And next Tuesday, Rabbi Joel Simons is going to be talking about the first 120 days of Donald Trump. And what it means for all of us. So you're welcome to come to that as well. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat
Shalom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Bye.